the easiest way for me to explain why we feel at the Penn American Center so strongly about this case is to explain to you why we decided to join many others, including Václav Havel, in arguing that he is someone who should be a serious candidate, I believe the best candidate, for the Nobel Peace Prize, next week, or the week after. Liu's writings express the aspirations of a growing number of Chinese citizens. The ideas he's articulated in his supposedly subversive writings, ideas that are commonplace in free societies around the world, are shared by a significant cross-section of Chinese society. Charter 08, for example, which you just heard about, is a testament to an expanding movement for peaceful political reform in China. This document, which, as you know, Liu co-authored, is a remarkable attempt both to engage China's leadership and to speak to the Chinese public about where China is and where she needs to go. It is novel in its breadth and in its list of signers. Not only dissidents and human rights lawyers, but also prominent political scientists, economists, writers, artists, grassroots activists, farmers, and even some government officials. In the end, more than 10,000 Chinese citizens have endorsed the document, despite the fact that almost all of the original 300 signers have been detained or harassed, or as we learned the other day, invited to tea. In doing so, they too exhibited exceptional courage and conviction. So to stand up for Liu Xiaobo is to stand with all those who advocate for peaceful change in the world's most populous nation. The numbers of those imprisoned in China for exercising the right to free expression guaranteed to them by international human rights law and by the Chinese constitution was once in the thousands, if not tens of thousands. Today we can identify only a few score such prisoners in the name of free expression. There are voices within the regime, we know, urging greater respect for free expression in China. China wants and needs to be heard in the community of nations. I and all of us in the Penn International family believe in a cosmopolitan conversation in which we hear from every nation. But the world must let China's rulers know that we can only listen respectfully if they offer to their own citizens the fundamental freedoms we all claim from our own governments. This is the right moment for the world to show those in China who don't understand that history is on freedom's side, that all the world's friends of peace and democracy are watching. And no signal of this would be more powerful than the award of the Nobel Peace Prize. Over the years, the Nobel Committee has had a distinguished record of recognizing and honoring just such voices at just such critical moments. Liu Xiaobo stands in the company of Andrei Sakharov, Shirin Ebadi, and Dr. Martin Luther King, brave proponents of civil and political rights who have stood up to systematic repression in their own countries and produced principled, non-violent resistance to bad laws and policies. In fact, the year before my countryman, Dr. King, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, he wrote in his seminal letter from a Birmingham jail, "An individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice is in reality expressing the highest respect for the law." 10 days after Liu Xiaobo was sentenced, in part for insisting that China should respect her own constitution, her own basic law, he was able to release a statement through his lawyers. And in it, he echoed Dr. King when he declared, "For an intellectual thirsty for freedom in a dictatorial country, prison is the very first threshold. Now I have stepped over the threshold and freedom is near." That's an amazing thing that he said. He's offering his own liberty in the service of the freedom of his own people, and he speaks of himself as being nearer to freedom because he's crossed this threshold. So we must continue now to press for his release. Because if China can jail Liu Xiaobo without repercussions, it isn't just dissident voices inside China that are vulnerable. To fail to challenge the Chinese government on Liu Xiaobo's imprisonment is to concede the argument internationally at enormous peril to peaceful advocates of process and change, not just in China, but in every country in the world. Awarding Liu Xiaobo the 2010 Nobel Peace Prize, by contrast, would honour both Dr. Liu's unique and indispensable contributions to the movement of greater civil, political and human rights in China, and serve as sustenance and inspiration to present and future rights activists in China and in every nation, not just in China. Which is why, as I say, it's not an altruistic gesture. We have to do this in the name of our own freedoms, as well as in the name of the freedoms of the people of China. In explaining why he, like us at the Pan American Center, has urged the Nobel Committee to award Liu the Peace Prize, our colleague Václav Havel, one of the authors, as you know, of the Czech Charter 77, on which Charter 08 was modelled, said recently, "We asked the Nobel Committee to honour Liu Xiaobo's more than 2 decades of unflinching and peaceful advocacy for reform, and to make him the first Chinese recipient of that prestigious award. In doing so, the Nobel Committee would signal both to Liu and to the Chinese government that many inside China and around the world stand in solidarity with him and his unwavering vision of freedom and human rights for the 1.3 billion people of China." So, on behalf of thousands of my fellow American writers, I join this great Czech writer, I join many of China's own lovers of freedom in urging the Nobel Committee to send this important message. Thank you very much.